8 goals. 8 goals for the Sabres. 8-3 over the Detroit Red Wings. A 6-point night by Tage Thompson. A historic night for Tage. We will recap it all. Look at the standings. That's right. I said we're going to look at the standings. And yeah, it's November. But we'll do it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel. Be sure to check us out and watch the show on YouTube if you have not yet. Like and subscribe us wherever you may be listening. Drop a comment, drop a question, whatever you're looking for on YouTube, or at Locked On Sabres on Twitter. At Sneaky Joe Sports to follow me on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, second edition of Explain Yourself coming up on today's show. We'll look at the standings. We'll look at some of the Sabres numbers on the season through 9 games. But, of course, we're going to break down all that was between the Sabres and the Red Wings on Monday night. An 8-3 win by the Sabres. It's their first game scoring that many goals since a couple of years ago. 10-game win streak season, 2018. Jason Pominville, in his 1,000th game in the NHL, he scored a couple of goals in what was then known as the J. Crew line with Jack Eichel, Jason Pominville, and Jeff Skinner. And the Sabres scored 9 on that day against the Ottawa Senators. Tonight, Monday night, they score 8 against Detroit, or as Rob Ray likes to call them, Detroit. Tage Thompson, I'm going to get right out of the way, do it right at the front. No need for spoilers, no need for teasing this at all. The goat head of the night, hell, the goat head of the century goes to Tage Thompson in this game. It is one of the greatest individual performances I have ever seen in one game by a Buffalo Sabre. Tage Thompson, 3 goals, 3 assists, 9 shots on goal in this game. And even the assists, 2 primary assists, both very nice. Shielding off Dylan Larkin and getting the puck out to Jack Quinn for Quinn's first goal of the season. And then another sweet pass to Jeff Skinner, which became Jeff Skinner's 300th career NHL goal. Thompson gets a secondary assist in the power play. And then not 1, not 2, but 3 highlight reel goals by Thompson. Honestly, all 3 of those goals could have been SportsCenter top 10. One of them actually was. His hat-trick goal at the end was the number 1 play on SportsCenter top 10 on Tuesday morning. Thompson was incredible, and it was a dominant, taking over the game type of performance that I'm not really sure any other Sabre at the moment is capable of, other than probably Rasmus Dahlin. And I'm talking taking over a game every time the guy's on the ice. Your team is dominating. We're talking multiple points, multiple goals. I think Dahlin is capable of it. Thompson may be the only other person on the team that is taking over a game capable. And he did it on this night. And he's the talk of the league. You know, I'm listening to Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts on my drive home from work, and I'm listening to them talk about Thompson. And now, oh, look how valuable that contract was, and a great gamble by the Buffalo Sabres. And I've got St. Louis Blues podcasts and websites that are talking about how from here on, Thompson and the Sabres end of that Ryan O'Reilly trade is the one you would rather have. It'll never be a win, obviously. Like the Blues won the Cup, and O'Reilly was the Conn Smythe winner. So it'll never be a win from the Sabres end definitively over St. Louis. But I think it's also right in pointing out that even in the Ryan O'Reilly trade, from this point on, rather the Sabres end, O'Reilly with 1 point, I believe, on the season. He's the talk of the league. He's the talk of the sport. It was that level of a performance. And especially with the 3 goals being so nice. A one-timer from the left wall and a cross-ice pass from Jeff Skinner, and his shot just blast off, right? And finds the back of the net. The second goal with that little toe drag hesitation down the middle of the ice, and then just the release that puts it past Alex Nedeljkovic of the Red Wings. And then the third goal, the cherry on top. The Backhand, forehand, backhand, put the puck in the net. What a goal to get a hat trick. And there were a lot of hats on the ice. That's how great a goal it was. That's how great a night it was. You don't see Sabre fans throw a ton of hats anymore. You'll see a few, but there were a ton of hats after Thompson scored that third goal. It was the best game I think I've seen by a Sabre since at least Eichel against Ottawa. That one time he had 4 goals a couple years ago. Like, I don't even know when the last time really would be. Thompson becomes the first Sabre to be in on 8 straight goals since Pat LaFontaine. Thompson had been in on 2 goals in the previous game, or maybe 3 goals in the previous game, in on the first 5 against the Red Wings. So in on 8 goals in a row. That was the most since Pat LaFontaine in the 90s. 6 points for Thompson on the night. It ties Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Clarke for the most points on Halloween. Gretzky and Bobby Clarke, most points on Halloween. And Thompson was just 1 point shy of Gilbert Perreault's record with 7 points in a game. Historic night for Tage Thompson. He deservedly so is getting a lot of attention on this Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon because of the performance he had last night. And a lot of talk about the contract this morning, again, as I mentioned, from national media. And it's too early to tell whether or not that's going to be of value, but suddenly everyone's ready to make the argument from the Sabres end of why they made that signing. And it was, try to get Thompson on a team-friendly deal, money, and also avoid any possibility that Thompson could tell you after the season, yeah, I'm only going to sign a 1-year deal as an RFA, and I'm just going to hit unrestricted free agency the year after. The Sabres solidified the fact that he's going to be here for 7 years, and yeah, they probably paid him a little bit earlier than they should have had to, but maybe they had to, because UFA status was only a little bit away, and the upside is you might be able to get him on a team-friendly contract where in 3 years, 4 years time, $7.1 million looks like a bargain. So credit to Tage Thompson. Awesome job. Awesome performance. All 3 goals I thought were just incredible. That line, by the way, with Kyle Okposo on it. Okposo's making it a lot more efficient. I talked to Don Granato with Jeremy White today on the WGR morning show, and Jeremy asked him, I asked him about Okposo being on that line, and I liked his answer about how Okposo's more deliberate. There's not a lot of unnecessary movement. It's puck on the net with a hard shot, rebound opportunities, doing a lot of the dirty work and not being too fancy, and allowing Thompson and Skinner to do the dipsy doodles, to do the fancy stuff. And Okposo has been great on that line, obviously, through 2 games. Okposo's got 4 assists in those 2 games. The line has, 6 goals, 5 goals, something crazy like that. Looking at that line from an advanced metrics standpoint against the Red Wings, Thompson, Skinner, and Okposo, 66% Corsi for. They were on the ice for 18 shot attempts and only 9 shot attempts against. Expected goals for, they were 65.3%, another incredible number. Just a great overall game by the Thompson, Skinner, and Okposo line. We'll come back and we'll do Explain Yourself, which really is my notebook. I tweeted out a bunch of things during the Sabres win over the Red Wings. We'll go through them. I'll elaborate on them. And then I want to get into the Sabres in the standings and also what their numbers look like. Some of their players look like through 9 games played. So that is upcoming here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you thought about securing your home with home security, but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen. Right now, Locked On Sabres listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it. Simply Safe, they've the cameras set up everywhere. It makes it safe, reliable, gives you that, it really gives you that comfortability when you're away from home that, everything is fine on your own shores. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use fast protecting technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get priority police response. Simply Safe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when the threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service. It costs less than $1 a day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-rated Simply Safe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere, arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your camera, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/locked on today. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/locked on NHL. Excuse me, simplysafe.com/locked on NHL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. When you are done with us, we want to encourage you to make your second listen. Locked On Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, the Sabres win 8-3 over the Detroit Red Wings. Couple of stats from this game before we get to explain yourself. Well, I'll go through some of my tweets from the game. The Sabres just boat racing the Red Wings, and not just on the scoreboard. Yes, the game got to 8-3. Goal by Jack Quinn that was really nice. His first goal of the year that I mentioned earlier with Tage Thompson, giving him a really nice setup. Also, in this game, Jeff Skinner gets his 300th NHL goal. Another nice assist by Thompson. Rasmus Dahlin with a power play goal, which at the time was important. Detroit had narrowed the gap to 4-3, and there was under 10 minutes to play, and it was a little nervy there, right? It was not yet out of hand in terms of the scoreboard. And Dahlin gets a little lucky, of course. He's on the wall. Him and Middlestat had kind of flip-flopped just by coincidence. Middlestat's at the top of the key, or top of the point, and Dahlin is on the wall. And Dahlin is trying to do a backdoor pass to Jeff Skinner, who is behind the goalie and has a tap-in if the pass gets through. But instead, what ends up happening is Olli Mata of the Red Wings, who, by the way, had a goal of his own earlier in the game, he has his foot out. The puck goes off Mata's foot in a weird angle, and it finds the back of the net through Alex Nedeljkovic's 5-hole. And that was really the beginning of the end, because Nedeljkovic, did he make a save after that? I'm not sure he did, because 12:53 mark, that Dahlin goal comes in the third period. 14:47, Dylan Cousins gets his fourth of the season on a great shot, but wrist shot from the wall, or like just inside the wall. Like, NHL goaltender's got to be stopping that. Then Thompson gets his highlight reel goal, and then Asplund with 39 seconds to go in the game, just a simple wrist shot from the high slot, and it's a good shot, but again, same thing. Like, you want the goalie to save it. It's 5-hole from a little bit of distance. You got to stop that. Nedeljkovic was horrendous. Maybe he was tired at the end of it, because on the scoreboard, or on the stat sheet, Sabres outshot Detroit in this game 46-18. 46-18. Shot attempts in this game for the Sabres, 61 to Detroit's 27. It was not even close. The Sabres deserve to win by as many as they won by. Sometimes you can get lucky winning a game by 4 or 5 goals. The Sabres deserve to win this game by 5 goals. They honestly could have won by 6 or 7, and it still would have been fair. Other stats from this game, face-offs right around even, 33 for Detroit, 32 for Buffalo. Sabres go 2 for 5 on the power play. Detroit only on the power play once. They go 0 for 1, but they did get a shorthanded goal in one of the Sabres power plays. Block shots in the game, 12 for Detroit, 5 for the Sabres. It's hard to block shots, though, when the other team's not getting many opportunities. And here's the big thing from this game, along with the score and the shots. Takeaways. Sabres had 8 takeaways and only 2 giveaways. So that +6 turnover differential, to use a football term, well in favor of the Sabres. Time to explain yourself. I got to go through some of my tweets from this game, and I'm going to elaborate on them a little bit further. Just kind of a version of my notebook from Monday night's game. And we will start with, that was such an amazing play by Dahlin that we'll never remember or see again. Dahlin with an incredible toe drag around the forward. It's already like a play I'm forgetting because of so many highlights that happen. And we're seeing that first tweet there by @Boomertang. He tweeted, which one? Too many to choose from. That's Dahlin. I know there was an amazing play somewhere in the second period, but I'm definitely not remembering it off the top of my head. Dahlin was really solid on this night. A quote tweet for one of my buddies, Joe Marino from the Charging Buffalo. Joe tweeted, should probably stop scratching Quinn, Krebs, and Asplund. And I quote tweeted that with Hinostroza should be the definitive 13th forward. And I stand by that. I think Hinostroza has been fine this season. I torched him after the Edmonton game after the Seattle game for some of the laziest plays you'll ever see in the NHL. So I'm fine with him playing every once in a while, but not in favor of anybody that's currently in the lineup. Quinn, Krebs, Asplund, these are players that are going to play pivotal roles for the Sabres in the future, most likely. And all have been playing fairly well, especially Asplund, especially Krebs, and Quinn now is doing that as well. So Hinostroza is a fine player, but there's just not room for him. And I hope that they stick to scratching Vinny Hinostroza and don't take anybody else out of the lineup. The Sabres tweeted out a congratulations to Jeff Skinner on his 300th NHL goal. I quote tweeted that with, it's the most goals in NHL history for a player without a playoff appearance. And that is true. Not only has Skinner scored the most goals without someone appearing in a playoff game, he has also played the most regular season games for anyone not playing ever in a playoff game. You might not have known that. Yeah, Skinner, with all his years in Carolina, they had gone through their little playoff drought. Now he's with Buffalo for the last 5 years. Skinner's 30 years old. He's had an 11-year career, a great career to this point, and he has not appeared in a playoff game. So I'm hoping for selfisher reasons that the Sabres make it, because it'd be the Sabres making it, but it would be cool for Jeff Skinner to get there in a Sabre uniform. I tweeted, if I had one thing critical to say all night, I might have only had one thing, and that was Tuck's having a rough game. I tweeted that at 9:17 p.m. last night. I stand by that. I thought Tuck was running around out there. He almost looked pissed off the entire night. There were a lot of giveaways. I sometimes was seeing him like glide and not skate that hard. I thought Tuck had a really rough game. He does get on the stat sheet with an assist on Thompson's second goal. But I wasn't loving Tuck on the night, but it was fine because the Sabres as a whole were dominating. After Thompson's third goal, I said, Sabres fans leaving the arena tonight and it's a meme of Will Ferrell from Old School. We're going fishing. And that's a play, of course, off Tage Thompson's goal song, which is Fishing in the Dark. And, getting out of the arena, the lake's right there. Sabre fans might have been in the mood to go fishing. Continue on with Explain Yourself after the Sabres 8-3 win over Detroit at Sneaky Joe Sports for my Twitter. I tweeted, I cannot remember ever seeing this many fantasy points in one hockey game. I tweeted a screenshot of my fantasy hockey lineup that I'm with a couple of buddies. I have Tage Thompson in that league. He had 24.8 points. And if you play fantasy football and not fantasy hockey, that might not sound like a lot because fantasy football players get that all the time. But the scoring format in fantasy hockey, if you have a pretty standard format, 24 is an insane amount. It's like the equivalent of scoring 70 in fantasy football. 3 goals, 3 assists, 9 shots on goal. Just an unbelievable night by Tage Thompson. And that was true of my fantasy squad as well. And then a couple more. Live look at Detroit was my tweet thereafter. This is like right as the game is about to end. I think maybe after Asplund scored. And it's the shot of Apollo Creed's trainer in Rocky 4 when he's yelling at Rocky to throw the damn towel. So we got that image. What else? I retweeted the guys over at 2 Guys 1 Cup, St. Louis Blues podcast. They tweeted, did the St. Louis Blues lose the Ryan O'Reilly trade? My column, ... Now, they were joking. But there is some truth in just bringing it up that the Sabres, it's no longer an embarrassment. It's at least close. It's at least, looking at a win-win if Thompson continues down this path. And then my final tweet that I'll read through, greatest individual games, and by the way, that I as a 27-year-old have ever seen from a Buffalo Sabre. My number 3 was Tage Thompson last night. My number 2 was Derek Roy, 2006, Game 1 against Ottawa. My number 1 was Tim Connolly, Game 1 against Ottawa in 2006. Roy tied a Sabre playoff record with 5 points in that game. He was unbelievable. And we all remember, of course, Tim Connolly, who was, maybe the Conn Smythe favorite at that point in time, was just taking over that game. Scores a filthy goal against Ottawa in Game 1 in 06, the famous 7-6 game, ties it at the end. That was the greatest game I think I've ever seen from a Sabre. And that's post-Hasek, remember, because I'm a little too young to remember a lot of Dominic Hasek. All right, that's Explain Yourself. We'll come back. We'll look at this. I want to look at the standings for me the first time on the podcast this season in depth. And then also, I got a playoff odd to look at for the Sabres. And one other comment that Don Granato made when he was on WGR this morning with me that I want to bring up. That's all ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. All right, final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. All right, let's go look at the standings at this point in time. The Sabres are 9 games through the year, as are many teams in the Atlantic Division, and that means the Sabres sit in second place with 12 points, 6-3 record, only behind the Boston Bruins, who have an 8-1 record. The Sabres also, by the way, have a plus 12 goal differential. That is the third best mark in the National Hockey League so far this season. Boston is number 1 with a plus 18, and Jack Eichel's Vegas Golden Knights are a plus 15. The Sabres are third with a plus 12. Teams behind the Sabres in the standings. We are still looking at every team in the Atlantic Division being 500 or better. Toronto loses in overtime. They're at 4-4-2. Ottawa's at 4-4. Montreal's at 5-4. Now Detroit's at 4-3-2. Although I will say this, it's really the whole conference. Everyone in the Eastern Conference, except for Columbus, is at least 500. NHL 500, the fake 500. Only Columbus at 3-7 is worse. I don't know what that is. Is that a lot of overtime games? I'm guessing that probably has something to do with it. Is it the East beating up on the West? I think that could play into it as well, but just a little interesting that every team in the East but Columbus is above 500. So the Sabres with a 1-point lead on the playoffs. 1 point ahead of Toronto, 1 point ahead of Detroit. But by points percentage, because they played 9 games, Toronto's played 10, they are a little bit higher. All right, Sabres stats for this season thus far. Through 9 games, I'm going to want to put some on pace for numbers up fairly soon. We'll probably get to that in the next week or so after we get a few more games under our belts. Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson tied atop the Sabres point leaders with 12 points apiece, both 6 goals and 6 assists in 9 games played. Alex Tuch tied with the team lead for goals with 6 goals and 3 assists. That's 9 points in 9 games. Jeff Skinner, odd stat line for him. This probably won't keep up, but 2 goals and 6 assists for 8 points in 9 games. Victor Olofsson, 6 goals and 1 assist. That's tied for the team lead in goals, 7 points in 9 games. And Casey Middlestat, complete opposite, 1 goal, 6 assists in 7 games played. And then one other guy, actually, I'll throw in here, Dylan Cousins, 4 goals and 2 assists, 6 points in 9 games played. Eric Comrie, by the way, now, his save percentage actually looks poor. It's a .902 in 6 starts, 3-3 record. He has allowed 20 goals in the 6 games. He's given the Sabres 3 quality starts, if you look at some of the advanced numbers. But also, Comrie is still playing fairly well in terms of goals saved above expected. The advanced numbers still like Comrie. They're not liking him as much as they were after the first couple of starts, of course. But 5-on-5, we are still talking about a very good goaltender. He ranks 24th in the NHL out of 66 qualifying goaltenders in goals saved above expected. Craig Anderson, interestingly enough, ranks 15th. But 24th out of 66, fine. All right, we're good. So that's that. And I think, is that all I wanted to get to? Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. That is not all I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to one other thing. Sabres playoff odds at moneypuck.com. The Sabres playoff odds are 27.9%. For comparison's sake, for you Bills fans out there, the Bills Super Bowl odds are 32%. So it's about the same right now. Sabres playoff odds versus Bills Super Bowl odds. So there's a good chance, a third of the time they'll make it. And every win they get, that'll increasingly go up. Well, that's going to do it for us today on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We got a game to preview tomorrow between the Sabres and the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's going to be a 7:30 puck drop. I forgot to look to see if that is a nationally televised game. I'm guessing it is because Wednesday at 7:30 usually means that. Can't tell you. I'll let you know tomorrow. But a 7:30 puck drop Wednesday night, Sabres hosting the Penguins, who have had a rough couple of games. They've lost, I think, 4 in a row. Yeah, they lost every one of their West Coast road trip games. So that's coming up tomorrow on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now that you're done with us, go make your second listen Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. I love a good take. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On Sabres.